This is Wendy Murdoch and Webinars with Wendy. We are continuing. We're going to be taking a break in September because I'm going to be on safari in Kenya with 2 groups going to Africa. So we'll be riding horseback. I might think of all of you, maybe not.
I hope you're not thinking about us.
And then we'll pick it back up in October. I am going to have a special guest in October, and I'm probably going to do it as a Zoom webinar rather than through this platform, just because my special guest is going to be Linda Tellington Jones. And I'm really looking forward to that. I met her 40 years ago, October 4th. So this will be like, we're not quite meeting on October 4th because I'm just back from Kenya, but the next week, and we'll be going down memory lane for sure. So be sure to tune in for that one, and we'll send you out a notice. We'll let you know so you can sign in, but we're going to do that one through Zoom webinars just for ease of use. Okay, today my guest is Sarah Lilley, and she is here to talk about habits, which I'm, of course, one of my favorite topics. So welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be back.
Yeah. So, Sarah, just for those who might not know you, can you just give everybody a little bit about your background? And I'll just switch the screen here. There we go.
Yeah. Let me, I'll just start sharing my screen right away, and we'll talk about who I am and what we're going to be talking about.
Awesome.
So what we're going to be talking about, as Wendy said, is hidden habits that shape your confidence in the saddle. And my name is Sarah Lilley. I'm a certified clinical EFT practitioner, and I help equestrians overcome fears, blocks, and trauma so they can reconnect to their confidence and truly partner with their horse.
So for people who might not know, can you tell us what EFT stands for? Or maybe that's in your next slide.
Yes, I can totally. You can see my screen. I just want to check you can see my screen.
Yep, it's perfect.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, so perfect timing. What is emotional freedom technique, or EFT? So it combines elements of modern Western psychology with the ancient art of acupressure. So it's also called tapping, because as you're focusing on an unwanted emotion or a stressful event, you're using your fingers and you're tapping on these acupressure points on your face and torso. And what the studies show us is that as you're tapping, you're sending your nervous system these messages of safety. You're literally moving your body from that place of stress into that place of rest and digest. You're lowering your stress hormones. You're rewiring the brain around the event you're tapping on. And now you get to choose how you want to show up, as opposed to coming from that reactive or that triggered or that habitual place.
So do they actually understand how the tapping affects the amygdala?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a little, right? It's a little gray area. What we can see is that when we tap, if we look at functional MRIs, we can literally see the stress centers of the brain diminish dramatically as you tap. Like in real time, you can see that happen. We know that you're actually tapping on these acupressure points, which are the most sort of conductive places in your body, basically. And you're saying that you're signaling this tiny little sort of literally electrical signal. And it's transporting through to your amygdala via the collagen in your body. And it's through this little kind of highway to your brain. So that's how we know if it works. That's how it works, if that makes sense.
So literally they've done MRIs while people are tapping and seeing what's going on.
Exactly. Oh. So they hook them up to these functional MRIs. You can see like the stress centers light up as they're focusing on the stressful. And as they tap, they can literally see those parts of the brain like diminish dramatically.
Wow. That's pretty cool to be able to have that kind of live data.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest myths about EFT is that, and I think a lot of people are more familiar with the less clinical EFT and more kind of mantra-esque EFT, where it's like, I'm abundant, I feel great, right? It kind of feels can feel very kind of toxic positivity-y, and it feels kind of fluffy a little bit. Yeah. But clinical EFT, we really have so much data and so many kind of clinical trials proving and showing the efficacy, which I think is really exciting.
Wow, that's really cool. I didn't realize that there was that level of research that had been done on it, and also to understand that there's a clinical EFT and
Yeah, distinction, right, exactly. Like a distinction between sort of clinical EFT and like EFT, right? Like all the studies are done specifically on the type of EFT I do, on the specific points I'm using, on the style of EFT I'm doing. So that's how we can really stand behind the efficacy of it. And we've done Peter Stapleton, who's one of the lead researchers. She works with Stephen Porges. So we also have proof of vagal tone improvement with EFT too, right? They can measure your heart rate variability over time with tapping, and they can see that improvement of that resilience, which is super exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So EFT can be used for lots of different things: trauma, to move through grief, limiting beliefs, a lot of really just a variety of things. I think there's 4 reasons for me why specifically it's great for equestrians. One, I think there's a lot of trauma in this space and a lot of it goes unrecognized. A lot of people really struggle, right? Post a fall, post something where they're having these big nervous system reactions. Either they're freezing or they're having high anxiety. And often just, mindset work just isn't enough. Right. There's some really amazing sports psychologists out there. I'm big fans of a lot of them, but sometimes that work is not enough. You need a tool to really move that trauma out of the body. That's what's going to allow you to kind of show up in alignment in your present.
Well, and, going back to Stephen Porges' work and Peter Levin, and I've had it in my own personal experience, is how trauma gets trapped in the body and how it struggles. It struggles. There's a struggle to get it out. But if it doesn't come out, it goes in, right? And then it's going to come out in either a positive way of releasing it or a negative way of patterns that aren't useful.
Yes, 100%. And a lot of people, I think, who struggle, with anxiety in the saddle, like it gets worse over time, unfortunately, not better too, because the more and more negative experiences you have, those neural pathways become neural highways, right? And so I'll talk about this more later, but, there's a real urge sometimes to like push through these things. And that typically makes things worse over time, not better, unfortunately, until you get to kind of the root of it.
Right.
I think emotions are really high in this space, only because horses mean everything to us, right? If you're, dealing with the loss of a horse, or even, suddenly a horse is injured and your future looks really uncertain with them, or your whole season looks different, or your year suddenly looks really different. It's a lot to navigate. And EFT is so good at just gently, in a really supportive way, holding space and allowing you to gently move through what can feel like really overwhelming emotions. Performance anxiety obviously is very common. Riders who feel great at home, and then they get to the ring and they either are in full panic or lock up, right? They suddenly get in the ring and everything feels they're freezing. And EFT is masterful at getting again to the root of that, so you can show up in alignment and show up to your best of your abilities. Finally, horses are sensitive, right? We know they can hear our heartbeat. They likely can smell our stress hormones, right? They likely can smell our cortisol, smell our adrenaline, right? And even if you've just come to the barn and you've just had a rough day at work and you're just feeling harried and you're just feeling rushed and sort of hectic, right? You're stuck in that work mode. Giving yourself like an emotional regulation tool to simply just like bring safety to nervous system, bring some calm to your nervous system so you can show up for your horse just feeling centered and feeling calm, I think is super helpful. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about how to work with your nervous system and not against it. We're going to talk about habits that feel like they're helpful, but are actually probably holding you back. And then we'll talk about some habits, some micro habits that can really start to build nervous system resilience, right? Build that vagal tone. So your nervous system, to really simplify it, kind of works in 2 modes, right? It's either under threat and it's in a state of protection, right? You're in fight, you're in flight, you're in freeze, or you're in fawn. Or you're in...
Can you describe fawn?
Fawn is just like that people pleasing, right? It's this idea that if you're okay, I'm safe if I know you're okay. So it's like, we're going to people please. We're going to really make sure that you're okay. Because I know if you're okay, then I'm okay.
Okay. I haven't heard that term before. That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's that protective of like, if you're okay and you're not going to, you're okay. okay, then I'm okay. It's like, it's a survival mechanism to make sure that externally everything else is okay around you so that you know you're safe.
Got it.
Right? So it's that people pleaser piece, which really comes from a place of trauma, right? So it's like that, it's a trauma response. And then there's that connection piece, right? Where you're in safety, when you're feeling connected, when you're feeling regulated. And we can either typically be in one of these two modes, right? And whatever mode we're in, we're going to keep looking for evidence to keep us there, right? So you can absolutely kind of get stuck in that threat protection mode. I've had several clients come to me who've said things like, I just feel like ever since it happened, I've just been like hypervigilant, right? I just feel like I'm just anxious all the time. But I have all these other things in my life. They're actually going really, really well. But it's like, I can't even pay attention to them, or I can't even be grateful for them right now. And what I tell them is like, that's because your body is in full protection mode. It is constantly scanning the horizon for the tigers, right, that are going to attack you, which is why you can't focus on those delicious blueberries over there. You can't be grateful for the delicious blueberries because your body has much more important things to do. So, but the good news is we can learn to move ourselves out of that threat mode into that place of safety, into that place of connection. So my story, how I came to this work is like many people through my own experience. I came back to riding as an adult in 2020. Pretty quickly, I hurt my finger while I was riding. Wasn't a big deal. I broke my finger. I had to have surgery, but it didn't even really hurt. Not a big deal. But I came back to riding, and now I had this really like low level anxiety that I could not shake. And it was so frustrating, right? I tried all these mindset tools. I tried everyone's advice. I'm like, nothing worked. And the anxiety was just taking all the fun. I was finally riding again. Like I was finally riding as an adult, and it just wasn't any fun anymore. This anxiety was ruining it. It was so frustrating. And that's when I realized mindset work is not enough sometimes, right? No amount of positive thinking or my head in mindset work was going to help me. And it wasn't until I used EFT that I moved that trauma out of my body, that I got to the root of it, that it really allowed me to show up completely differently in my writing.
And it's so interesting because the size of the trauma isn't important.
100%. I'm so glad you said that, Wendy. It's so true. Yeah. Because people will say things like, I don't understand. It wasn't even a bad fall, or it didn't even hurt myself, or like, what is wrong with me? It's like, so-and-so had a way worse fall than me. They broke their leg and they're fine, right? But it doesn't matter. As you said, it's like, it doesn't matter. It's such a good point you make. Yeah. I think there's a lot of judgment around that like, why is this happening? Because it wasn't even a bad fall or anything like that. Yeah.
Right.
And people say to me all the time, my body is out of control. And when I tell them, it's like, your body is not out of control. It is a badass at keeping you safe, right? It is a badass at keeping you safe. It is working so hard to keep you safe, right? It's that maladaptive habit that you mentioned, and we can just get to the root and rewire it, right? We can get to the root with a tool like EFT, bring safety to the nervous system, so you're no longer triggered by that past event in your present. Because that's what a trigger is, right? A trigger is an unprocessed event in the past that is showing up in your present. And EFT is so good at really rewiring that past event so you can show up in your present very, very differently. So I want to highlight this. Confidence for me is not mindset. It is safety in the nervous system.
I love that. I think that needs to be broadcast more loudly as a concept, because, I see people all the time where they're not confident, but the minute they feel secure, right, then the confidence level comes up.
Yeah.
And, it's like, but we have this weird sense that confidence is something that other people have, or that it's this mystical thing. Like we don't recognize confidence is actually a very physical thing, right?
Yes, I love that. I think this would be my t-shirt. This is like my t-shirt on my billboard.
Yeah.
Confidence is not mindset, it's safety in the nervous system. Yeah.
Yep.
Glad that resonates. So we're going to talk about tools and habits that bring safety to the nervous system, that build resilience, that build that vagal tone. And we talk about having good vagal tone. That just means you have resilience, right? Life is always going to happen. but you have good resilience, good vagal tone. You can come back to your center with more ease. So habits that seem helpful, but quietly hold us back. That's what we're going to talk about first. So the first habit I want to talk about is avoiding our feelings. So you experience an emotion, right? Like fear, anger. You release a cascade of these neurochemicals and you have a physical reaction, right? You have like tightness in your chest. You have like nauseousness in your stomach. And these chemicals metabolize within 60 to 90 seconds unless re-triggered by thought. So that means that you have an emotion for 60 to 90 seconds, that physical sensation, which if you don't re-trigger it, if you don't go to your head and you just stay with that physical sensation, it will move out of your body. So the invitation is, can you just feel the sensation and not re-trigger that emotional loop? Right? Can we feel the discomfort of it without making meaning of it, without going to the head, and just being with that physical discomfort?
Boy, you're asking people to be with their feelings. OMG.
It's so simple, but it's not easy, right? So I'm going to give you a perfect example. So I'm at a horse show. It's a schooling horse trial, like a month or so ago. So dressage went well. Show jumping. I'm in the show jumping warm up. It's, hectic as always, but it's fine. I'm going out. So I'm waiting by the ring to go in. And there was an unexpected delay, right? So I ended up waiting for 20 minutes. It's very hot. It's like high 80s. I'm like sweating. And, the steward comes over and is like, you're on deck. And I immediately thought, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I feel like I'm too old for this. Like, I'm going to forget my course. Like, oh my God, I'm so hot. Like, I don't know if I can do it. Right? And I spiraled for maybe, 20 seconds. And I thought, Sarah, you have tools. Use your tools. So I just checked into my body and I was like, what is actually happening in my body? Right? And this is all happening in like a minute, but checking into my body. And I was like, okay, what's actually happening is my eyes have that like prickly sensation, like they're tired and there's like needles in my eyes, that kind of prickly sensation you get in your eyes when you're tired. So I had that in my eyes. My throat is feeling pretty parched. Even though a friend was giving me water, it just felt kind of parched and dry. And my whole body kind of felt like droopy. Like I literally felt like I was a flower that was in a vase that someone had like forgotten to water. And I was just kind of droopy. And so I just sat with that. I breathed into it for a moment. And I thought, oh, okay, that's all that's happening. There's some weird sensation in my eye. My throat is a little dry and I'm droopy. And I was like, I'm okay. Like I can ride from that place. That's all that's happening. And I stayed there for another 20 seconds, breathed into it. And of course, the more I held space for those sensations, they dissipated a little bit. And I was like, I'm okay. That's all that's happening. There's some sensation in my eyes. There's some sensation in my droopy sensation, but I'm okay. I can ride from that place. I'm going to be fine. So that's the invitation, is to, we want to go, we feel uncomfortable. We immediately, without even realizing, go to our head. We start making meaning out of it and we make stories up. So the invitation is go to the body first, because when you bring safety to the body, which is really just holding space, breathing into it, being with it, the mind will slow down afterwards, right? The mind will follow, but we have to go to the body first. And to your point earlier, Wendy, like confidence is not the absence of sensation or emotion, right? It's like, yeah, I'm feeling a little droopy, but I'm okay. I'm feeling this weird, like prickly thing in my eyes, but you know what? I can handle it. I'm okay. I can ride from that place. So it's incredibly simple to feel our feelings, but it's not easy, right? It's a little counterintuitive and it does take practice.
Well, and we're so taught not to feel our feelings, yes, right? Yes. I mean, it's like the messages are always, not to feel, don't feel. So we've got generational,
yes,
emotional dysfunction, I guess is probably the best way to put it.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I have a slide about it later. And we were taught from such a young age, right? We're told to hug people we don't want to hug as kids. We're told to like, just smile, you're fine, or stop crying, get up, or, don't be angry. Your brother didn't mean it, right? We're just told from such a young age to like that our feelings are invalid or they're wrong or we shouldn't feel them, right? So we're literally never taught how to feel our feelings.
Right.
100%. So we talked about avoiding our feelings being problematic. Now I want to talk about the problematic habit of sort of toughening up and like pushing through it. So your amygdala is just a warning system, right? It's just a message. And your amygdala is really like a scout in the army, right? A scout's sole job is to warn the army, right? So the scout comes over and is like, there's danger over here, right? And there's like danger over there. And if the army is like, don't talk to us, go away. No, absolutely not. I refuse to listen to you. Right?
And the amygdala, just for people who might not know, is an almond-shaped organ in your brain, right?
Yes. It controls your fight or flight. Thank you for jumping in. Yes. So if you're like, don't talk to, if the army says to the scout, don't talk to me, go away. The scout's sole job is to warn the army, right? So what does the scout do? The scout's like, I got to yell and scream now. I've got to I've got to really let them know they are not listening to me, right? So then the scout just starts yelling and he's like, there's danger over there, right? You got to listen to me, right? And that's what happens if we kind of don't listen to that part of us. It just gets louder. If the scout came to the army and said, there's danger over here and there's danger over here, and the army was like, okay, where is the danger? There's danger over there. Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you so much. Oh, there's danger over there too. Okay, good to know. I really appreciate your help. Thank you. The scout's like, oh, cool. I've done my job. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go take a break now. Right. And so that is what, like, that fear part of your brain is just a warning system. And we have to learn to hold space for it and not just kind of ignore it, push it away, because otherwise most of the time it's just going to get louder, or it's going to come out, as you alluded to earlier, Wendy, in other ways that are not helpful. Yeah. And, all parts of us, even those frustrating, annoying parts, they all just want to be seen and heard. And so the paradox, the irony of it is that, the more we hold space for these parts, the less and less they show up. The more we hold space for them, the quieter they get, which again feels so counterintuitive to what we're taught as kids. But the more we hold space for them, we own it, they don't own us. So we take away its power by holding space for it. So this is my all-time pet peeve, the whole sort of, you've got to get back on if you have a fall. Now, if you do have a fall and you feel great and you want to get back on, by all means, like, please do, no problem. But if you're feeling nervous system reaction in your body still, if you're feeling just kind of shaky and anxious, right? Or maybe you feel like you're kind of about to cry for a moment, or maybe you feel kind of in that shock place where you're like, what has even happened there? Like you feel kind of frozen and a little kind of fuzzy, right? Like kind of people describe it as like fuzzy, like they're kind of in water, right? Take the time you need to bring some safety back to the nervous system before you get back on your horse, right? It's like that mouse that's kind of being chased by the cat and it's like fleeing, right? And it's found safety in the hole and it's a little, mouse nest. And then it starts like shaking, right? It's shaking out all that adrenaline, all those stress hormones. And then it's okay. It goes back to kind of normal. And in that same way, if we interrupt that trauma cycle, humans have that same kind of trauma cycle. And if we interrupt that, it can really kind of lock in that energy, lock in that trigger into your body. So I just invite people, if that happens, to please, whatever anyone tells you, please take the time you need, whether that's like a couple of walking your horse around the ring a couple of times, taking 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you need. Even if you want to take the day, like if you don't, if you're feeling sore or something, like you do not need to get back on. You're much better served. Your nervous system is much better served to take the time you need until you feel centered before you get back on.
So, mice shake, cats shake, dogs shake. Do people, is there? Technically, right, we
do not naturally shake, right? I would invite people to shake. I would love nothing more than people falling off a horse, feeling anxious and being like, okay, I'm just going to shake it out for a second. Like that is really good for the nervous system. And like, I would actually totally invite you to do that. But we do need to process it out, right? Maybe that's just like a walk, right? We don't have a, like a biological, like we're not like a mouse, so we're not automatically going to shake it out. But we do need to give ourselves that time if you're feeling anxious. And sometimes it's just time, right? Maybe just like you just give yourself 10 minutes to sit quietly, next to the arena, take a few deep breaths, and then you're like, oh, okay, actually I feel much better now all of a sudden, right? And then you can get back on.
So we've kind of lost that, I mean, you see all other animals shake. That's normal.
Yeah.
But we seem to have lost that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, they've talked about that, someone, I think it might've been Peter Levine, I think in one of his books, he talks about like, he imagines sort of, our ancestors, it's running from the tiger, right? Getting back to the village, being okay. And then the village kind of celebrating like you made it and you're okay and you survived, and processing the trauma that way. Right. So he talked about, I think, several indigenous cultures where there's that kind of like survival structure. If there was like a near miss or a near death or something like that, where they have these rituals around it. So I think our ancestors probably had better tools to deal with that because they were really in much more the lion tiger survival place, right? Like
right.
Our survival things anymore aren't really, obviously aren't, for most of us, aren't lions and tigers. So as you said, I think we've lost that ability to move things out of our body.
Yeah.
Which I think is what tapping does so beautifully. And of course now, like the metaphorical threats could be like just people coming at you all day at work and things like that. So we just kind of keep taking on these threats without, which is why burnout happens, without actually ever kind of releasing them in a helpful way. So we talked about avoiding our feelings. We talked about toughening up, pushing through it being problematic. And now I want to talk about toxic positivity, which is also problematic. As we talked about earlier, confidence isn't mental, right? If your body feels unsafe, no kind of thought alone can override that. Confidence is safety in the nervous system.
And I'm so glad you're talking about this, because how many times have you heard people try to do self-talk and talk themselves out of things? But it's so not. And what's really interesting is that anyone around them, it resonates as false.
Yes, totally.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. It's like when you're looking, it's like, I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm fine. Yeah. It's like, you're not fine, right? It's like anytime a mantra like that, if it feels like you're lying to yourself, it's not helpful. If you're like, I'm fine, but a part of you like, you're not fine. You're freaking out right now. Like that is not helpful. Yeah. That is underlining the stress and the trauma, and not actually, that's keeping you stuck, right? It's the opposite of helpful. And I know a lot of people, again, parents, trainers, well-meaning people say things to people all the time, right? Like you're going to be fine, or don't be nervous. And it's so well-meaning. Like I really get it. But again, you're now shaming people into their feelings. Like now they're feeling nervous, and then now they're feeling bad for feeling nervous. Like they shouldn't be feeling nervous, right? So they're feeling sort of embarrassed or shame or wrong on top of feeling nervous, right? So you're just layering it on for them.
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, I've seen it, and again, it resonates falsely within our own nervous systems. Like it's so obvious. Like, no, you're not fine.
Yeah, Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So in EFT, like some of the statements used in EFT are things like this, which really hold space for both parts, right? It's like, even though I can feel this, nauseousness in my stomach, I'm okay, right? Even though I can feel this pressure in my chest, I'm more than this feeling, right? Even though part of me feels nervous, I choose to trust I've got this. I choose to trust my training, right? So we can acknowledge what we're feeling, that unwanted feeling, and that it's just a part of us, and we've got this, and we're okay. We can hold space for it, and I'm more than this feeling. I've got this feeling. I'm okay. So that's what, to me, confidence sounds like.
Yeah.
As we talked about earlier, you brought this up beautifully, Wendy, we were never taught to feel our feelings safely, right? Most of us, we were taught to override them, to push through them, to ignore them, to just like smile and perform and just pretend they weren't there, right? And to a point that serves us. To a point, we can do that. But over time, that is not going to serve you. And that is going to keep you in that, threat protective nervous system state. You're not going to enjoy the experience or feel any sort of safety or appreciation of the experiences you're in. And so my invitation is the opposite, as you said, to feel the feelings, right? What if your feelings weren't the problem? What if they were the path? What if freedom came from actually sitting with your feelings, for building capacity to be with those sensations? For me, freedom comes on the other side of that.
And that's, how do I say this? We have to practice this to learn how to do this.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. It feels so counterintuitive. And it takes practice, like any habit, like any skill, right? It's a totally new skill. It feels very counterintuitive to first. So absolutely, you need to practice it. Absolutely. So we talked about habits that don't serve us. So I want to talk about a few simple micro habits that really build nervous system resilience. So what are micro habits? Micro habits are just simple, very easy to implement behavior that require kind of minimal effort, right? We're all busy. Time is a barrier to entry for a lot of people. But I think micro habits are unbelievably effective and vastly underestimated because they really compound so much over time. If you're not familiar with Atomic Habits or someone hasn't read this book, I highly recommend Atomic Habits. It reads like a fun magazine article. Like, it's a very easy read. It's one of those books you read and you're sort of like, I know this information already, but somehow the way he packages it just kind of like all these great little aha moments. He has a lot of great examples in there from athletic teams and athletes who make these unbelievably small changes and have like dramatic results over time. He talks about in the book, if you get 1% better each day, you'll end up 37 times better by the end of the year. And we can work out our nervous system just like we work out our cardiovascular system or our muscular system.
Oh, I think this is such a great point. Can you just go back to that? We don't think of like training the nervous system. We feel like the nervous system controls us.
Yes.
So I love this idea about that we can basically do a workout session for our nervous system.
Totally. Awesome. 100%. Yeah, we can work it out. We can resource it. We can teach it. No, we want to live in safety and connection. This is where we want to stay. Right? So absolutely, we can work it out. So confidence comes from building capacity to be with the sensations in your body. And it's built through habits that signal safety to the nervous system. So the first habit that I want to talk about is resourcing. And resourcing is just intentionally connecting with something internal or external that helps your body shift into that regulation, into that safety, into that connection mode. So a resource nervous system can handle more stress, right? It's more resilient and it can return to calm faster. If you're under-resourced, right? If you're stuck in that threat mode, you're gonna slip into that threat mode much more easily, and you're gonna have a much harder time getting out of it. So I'll use myself as an example. So a couple of weeks ago, I was in a lesson, and the very first jump my horse did was like a massive long spot, right? And it was one of those long spots where I'm like going over the jump and expletives are like coming out of my mouth. I was like, beep, 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 because it was like so big, right? And so I land, I stay on, I'm fine. And the rest of the lesson, I had some good jumps, but I also had like a lot of grabby hands, and like I just wasn't riding well. And after the lesson, I tapped very briefly, and I thought, oh my goodness, I know exactly what happened. I cannot believe I didn't realize what was happening in the moment. But I had said to my trainer at the beginning of the lesson, I'm really tired. I was like, I had a horrible night's sleep last night. I'm really exhausted. And I'd had like a couple of really exciting big work days. I was just feeling, I was really under-resourced. Like I went into that lesson feeling completely under-resourced. Normally that long spot would have happened and I probably would have recovered. I probably would have been fine. The rest of the lesson would have been fine. But because I was under-resourced and I didn't realize at the time, I slipped a little bit into that threat mode. And yes, I was writing badly, but it wasn't so much I was writing badly. It was I was in threat mode, so I was grabbing. Like I didn't want that long spot to happen again. On some level, I felt a little unsafe. So I was grabbing with my hands. I was freezing up a little bit. And if I had come to that lesson feeling better resourced, I guarantee you I'd have had that long spot and the rest of the lesson I would have been fine. But because I was under-resourced, I was exhausted, I was really tired. It's like I couldn't recover as fast as I normally do.
So when you say resource, what kinds of things are a resource?
So there's lots of different things, right? Obviously the basics of like sleep and eating well and your body chemistry feeling good, right? Like there's so many ways to resource your nervous system. I'm going to talk about some other examples with Glimmers. We'll talk about connection and being in community. So there's lots of different ways to resource yourself. I was particularly under-resourced that day because I had zero sleep and I'd been working too much and I was just exhausted, right? So there wasn't safety in my nervous system. My body literally did not feel safe. So one way to resource your nervous system is Glimmers. And Glimmers are the opposite of triggers, right? They're things that bring you that moment of safety or connection or calm. And they're very different for everyone. And the thing is, once you're into that place of connection, once you're actually with that glimmer, your brain, you're training your body, you're working out your nervous system to keep looking for more moments of safety. Right? So in that way, you're working out your nervous system because you're teaching it. We're going to keep looking for safety. We're going to keep looking for safety. You're safe, right? You're going to train your nervous system that way. And the invitation is to really stay with that glimmer, right? To be with it for like, again, a micro habit, but 20 or 30 seconds to really feel into it, into your body, right? Not like, oh, my cat's really cute. It's like, let me just like snuggle my cat and just feel like that feels, oh, she's so soft and she smells good. And just be with that feeling of connection for 20 or 30 seconds, right? Or maybe it's a view. Maybe you go for a walk and you're just like, that tree is just, oh, the color, right? Whatever, it could be different for everyone. But the important piece is to really just be with it, right? To like, maybe it's like you're resting your head on your horse's withers and you're just standing there and she smells good and you're just being with it and you're allowing yourself to feel into it with your senses, right? What it smells, what you're seeing, what it feels like in your body. So getting into the body is what's important, not just kind of intellectually like, my cat's very cute, right? There's such a big distinction there and that's so important. And we're counteracting the negative bias, right? The negative bias is real. It's in our DNA. It is a survival scale. It was so much more important for us to remember where the tiger attacked us as opposed to where the delicious blueberries are, right? So that's what our brain is always going to go to the negative. But again, we're retraining it. We're working out the nervous system to remind it, let's look for the positive. Let's look for safety. Let's look for the good things. Tapping, of course, at its simplest is a resourcing tool. If all you did was just throughout your day for like, again, less than a minute, just tap through the points. You're literally just sending calming signals to the amygdala, right? You'll typically start yawning. You'll relax your body. Whether you use tapping as a resourcing tool to kind of move through big emotional reactions, right? Maybe you're fine at the walk trot, but as soon as you start cantering, you're just getting incredibly tight and super anxious. And you can tap and work to get to the root of that so you can enjoy cantering again, maybe even jumping again, and you can feel that freedom again. Or maybe you're just using it as an everyday emotional regulation tool. Maybe you're just tapping on the points. This slide makes me laugh because I feel like so many riders can relate to that feeling of having a bad ride and then just being in the car, the ride home from the barn, just like spiraling, right? Like, oh, what is wrong with me? Like, I can't believe I messed up that 2-stride again. And so-and-so is so much better than me. And like, I'll never make my goals. And you just spiral and spend all this time just replaying the bad ride, replaying the moments, right? Just like obsessing. And instead, the invitation is like, can you just take a moment, right? Tap for, again, a minute, 2 minutes. And typically what happens is, I'm just feeling disappointed. That's all that's happening. It was a disappointing ride, right? That sucks. It's a bummer. Like, no, I want all my rides to be like amazing. And sometimes they're not, and that's okay. But I can just be with that disappointment, right? I don't have to make all these stories up. I don't have to like make up all these absurd, made up stories. I can just be with the disappointment. And then of course, irony, you're with the disappointment. And you're like, actually, I'm okay, right? You move through it by holding space for it instead of like spending, like gives you so much time back as opposed to spending the 40-minute drive home, just obsessing in this spiral. Now you're like, oh, I'm just disappointed. That's okay. And then you put your podcast on or whatever else you do, right? So it gives you time back. Oh my God.
It's so interesting because I write a weekly blog, and my blog this week was about small wins. And right? And it's so interesting how quick we are to go to the negative. And it's like, no, just look for the small win. Did you like get to the barn? That's a win.
Yes,
right?
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And I've had so many clients be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm like, they feel like they've got time back because they're like, I used to spend all this time like either obsessing after the bad ride or like going to the barn, being anxious about my ride. And now I'm just like, I really enjoy going to the barn. I listened to this podcast or I called my friend. And before they were spending 40 minutes just like stressing out. And they're like, I have so much time back in my week now. So this is not a micro habit, but I feel like I just want to squeeze it in because it's come up in my own life recently and in my clients' lives is the importance of connection, right? Stephen Porges says connection is the biological antidote to stress. And, we're all busy, right? We all have jobs and we're working hard and we're supporting our horses and we have our barn life. And we may, in fact, be surrounded by people, right? Really surrounded by people. But are we really prioritizing being with the people where we really feel seen and heard? Because that is such a powerful resource for the nervous system. I mean, it is so deeply powerful. And it's funny because my son is 15 and we were talking about friends. I don't remember what we were talking about, but we were talking about friends for some reason. And he said, well, Mom, you don't really have any friends. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I have friends. And he was like, well, okay, you're right. You have friends. Of course you have friends, but you don't really see your friends. And I thought, oh God, like he's totally right. Like he is 100% right. The people that I love the most, like my dearest friends, I adore them, but I'm busy and I don't prioritize seeing them in the way that I should, right? In terms of like from a nervous system perspective and other perspectives too, but those are the people that when I see them, those people that are like, oh my God, it was so good to see that person. Like, it's so good to see them. Those are the people that we need to make sure we're prioritizing because they are so deeply resourcing for the nervous system. So that was a big like, wise thoughts from the teenager.
Yeah, that's actually a really fascinating thought because especially as adults, we have a harder time making friends.
Yeah.
We tend to let other things get in the way of that. And, we are social creatures. And when you think about how there's that loss of social loneliness, as they're saying, is going to be one of the biggest health problems coming down the pike is loneliness.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think there's a distinction too, right? Because like I see a lot of people. Like, and I love a lot of the people I see, like, but in terms of seeing those few handful of people that we really feel seen and heard, right? Those deep connective people, there is a distinction there. And I think it's important to mention. But yeah, that the stats on loneliness now are with social media and the next year. They're wild. So yeah. Yeah. So we talked about resourcing. There's lots of different ways to do it. We just talked about Glimmers. We talked about tapping. We talked about being in community. The second thing I want to talk about is this game. What if the opposite is true? So again, going to the worst case scenario is a biological need, right? Like, or biological impulse. Again, it's a protective function. It's a survival skill. But just for a moment, imagine what it would be like if we obsessed about like the best case scenario, right? Like what if instead of being like, oh God, there's an ox around that course and I'm probably going to be like terrible stride to that. And oh God, and last time I did an ox, I got that awful like shoulder, whatever. Instead you were like, wow, I bet I'm going to get like the perfect stride to that ox. I bet I'm going to have that jump that's like that gorgeous, like sailing over feeling. And I bet she's going to land and just like come right off my leg and go beautifully to the next jump, right? Just what would that be like, right? If we just made up that story instead of the worst case scenario. So my invitation is just to notice, just start noticing, right? That's the first step, just noticing where your brain is going to worst case scenario. And if you can, just pause, just ask yourself, like, what if the opposite was true, right? This is something that Martha Beck, who's a well-known personal development coach, talks about a lot. Even if it's something really mundane, right? Like, oh my God, I have to go park there and I can never get a parking space there. It's like, oh, what if, let me just pause. What if the opposite is true? What if I get there and as I pull up, someone just leaves, just right at the perfect spot and I just pull right in, right? So the invitation is just to notice, right? Just to be curious. And we're really using curiosity as an active path to like unwind the stress and not fuel it, right? Judson Brewer, if anyone wants to dive deeper, Judson Brewer has a fantastic book, Unwinding Anxiety, that talks a lot about like the reward system in the brain and how curiosity can be used as a more effective reward to replace anxiety. So we're using that curiosity to just pause as a pattern interrupt and just ask, what if the opposite is true? So it's a fun game to play. So I invite you to play that game.
And this is really interesting because I like when working with horses, I always say that curiosity and fear are two sides of the same coin. Right? Totally. Because you'll see a horse be curious and then fearful and then curious and then fearful. And that's exactly what this is talking about. It's the nervous system's.
Yes. Like this, yeah. I love that. I've never heard. Yeah. I love that dichotomy that you said. It's like the two sides of the same coin going from that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So we talked about resourcing. We talked about what if the opposite is true. And finally, I want to talk about receiving compliments. Again, it's just such a simple micro habit. But how often has like a trainer said to you, you know, like, wow, your lower leg is really looking good. And you're like, yeah, but my hands, like I'm so grippy still. And I don't know why my reins keep getting longer, right? Like you completely ignore the compliment, right? Yes. Or the win. Right. So I bet your article talks about this. Or, you know, or maybe a barn mate, right? They say, you look really great today. And you're like, oh, you guys, oh my God, you looked amazing. Right. It's like you completely like return, but completely deflect your own win. Right. And so can you be in the practice of just thank you, like receiving that, right? That is a moment of connection. That's a moment of being in community, of being in safety with someone else, of receiving like a good feeling. You are much more likely to instill that habit if they're complimenting your lower leg, instilling that habit. If you actually sit with it just again for 20 seconds, thank you. Because you're instilling that small little dopamine hit of receiving that compliment with the habit of a good lower leg, right? Your brain is going to connect that. So you're going to build on that success. And again, we're counteracting that negative bias, right? We always just want to go back to all the things that aren't working, to your point, right? Like all the things that didn't work. Like you cannot, one of my favorite quotes too, you can't build on success you don't acknowledge. So we have to acknowledge those small wins, to your point, so we can build on them. If we don't acknowledge them, it's like they didn't happen. Our brain doesn't register them. And we're constantly in that striving and that failure and that it's not working place. As opposed to being able to build on, I'm getting better, I'm getting stronger, it's working, I'm safe, I'm okay. So I think the small wins are so important to acknowledge.
Yeah, and you know that you're also touching on, I can't remember when, but it was quite a while ago in my life that somebody offered me something and they stopped me and said, just say thank you. And I was like, oh. And that was it, but it's a micro habit that I built in, and I watch people when somebody, and they, you know, just say thank you. That's all you have to say, right? You don't have to, you know, if they want to pay your bill, say thank you.
Yeah, totally. My Achilles heel is I want to return the compliment. I want to be like, oh, thank you so much. You guys did that, as opposed to, again, just like receive that, right? It's like, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's amazing. It's such a small habit, but it's amazing actually. Yeah, how it feels if you actually just let yourself receive that compliment, right?
Yeah.
So these are all just like really simple, like tiny habits, but again, and just a few examples of many different habits that build that vagal tone, right? That build that resilience. I'm going to finish just quickly with a client story. So a client of mine, she came to me because she had really severe performance anxiety, and she would have like big panic attacks before going into the show ring. And when she got into the show ring, she would then almost like freeze up and feel like the first half of the course was just like she was in slow motion and, you know, just really like very frozen. And she was considering like not showing anymore because nothing was working, and she was really frustrated, and she knew she wasn't safe, right? And so we worked together, and after the first show back, she called me the next day and she said, "Can we talk on the phone for 5 minutes?" And I was like, "Sure." We didn't normally talk on the phone, but I said, "Sure, call me between this time and this time." And she got on the phone with me and she said, "Oh my goodness, I have never felt so much in flow." She was unbelievable. She was like, "I was so relaxed." She was like, "In the warm-up, I felt really great. Right as I was going to the ring, I felt a little bit of anxiety." She was like, "Normally it would be like a 1,000 out of 10. Now she was like, it was like a 2 out of 10. And she's like, "I literally said to it, 'Oh, hey, I was wondering when you were going to show up.'" And she's like, and I just talked to it. I just held space for it. And she literally said, "You're welcome to hang out. You're welcome to come in the ring with me. Not a big deal. But literally, I have the reins. I have the reins, but you're welcome to come along. No problem. We've got this." And she kind of used that really anxiety as fuel, right? And had the best round she's ever had, like completely in flow and so thrilled and excited. So I think that's just such a good example of getting to the root with tapping, resourcing her around that past experience, and then having a tool for when, again, not like when we work on these parts, they don't completely just disappear, but instead of coming back at like 1,000 out of 10, it's coming back at a 2. And now she has tools just to kind of hold space for those parts and to kind of bring them with her into the show and had a great experience. And I guarantee you, the more she holds space for those parts, the less and less they'll show up. And then just the final thing I'll say is if anyone is new to tapping and wants to try, I have a really great 10-minute tapping audio. It's designed to use before you work with your horse, whether you're doing groundwork with your horse, whether you're just going to go see your horse and you're not even planning on riding and you're just kind of feeling a little stressed, or whether you're planning on riding your horse. It's literally me in your ear leading you to a 10-minute tapping sequence. So if you're interested in trying some tapping yourself, I just invite you to, go to my website and download that audio. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think it's really great. So if you're interested or EFT curious, as a friend of mine says, I invite you to kind of download that tapping audio and let me know what you think.
Awesome. So we've had a question, and this was my question that I had right from the beginning is there EFT tapping for horses?
Oh, that's such a good question. So there is. So it's not something I specialize in. I definitely have tapped on my horse. I kind of transpose some of my points to like her face. There are practitioners, not many of them. There are practitioners that tap on horses. So yes, there are some. I would say tapping is, again, a mixture of sort of, acupressure and sort of, therapeutic models, right? So really using acupressure on horses is tapping on horses. It's just instead of tapping, you're just putting pressure on horses, right? On those points. So anyone who works on the meridian systems on horses, who do body work using the meridians or the acupressure points on horses, is tapping on horses. They're just kind of putting pressure, not actually tapping, but it's the same idea, if that makes sense.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
That
would actually be really interesting for you if you know someone that might be a good webinar.
Yes.
That might be
I'll look into that for you. There's a really great, someone on Instagram I follow in England, her, what do you call it? Her handle is like Magic Hands, but it's spelled like MAQUE, I think, Magic Hands. She does really great meridian work with horses, where she traces the meridians on horses with her fingers, both using touch and just energy. And I really like her work. She's someone who I would definitely recommend if you're interested in doing it. Some of her meridian tracing I do on my horse, and she loves it. So I'd recommend her for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great, because I think that would be a really interesting webinar. Yeah. This is fantastic because you've brought in so many different things in simple ways, and I just love kind of how you've packaged it here in this webinar. I think it's very usable for people to understand. And it's so funny. Like I said, I wrote the blog this week on small wins and, how we need to focus on that in order to be able to move forward. And you've just put it together really beautifully.
Thank you so much. I do think micro habits are so helpful because we're all busy, right? Like especially horse people, we're balancing a lot, and you can work out your nervous system in these small ways, in these micro moments in your day, in the nooks and crannies of your day, to really, to change how your nervous system is, in the world for sure.
Yeah. Can you just tell me the name of that person again in the UK?
I'll see if I want to say it's like Magic Hands. Let me see if I can find it really quick. I've got my phone right here. Let me see if I can. If I don't find it now, I will find it and I'll post it under the YouTube, under the replay.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
I'm not sure I can find it right now without taking 5 minutes. But I'll put the name under the whoever's asking. I'll put the name. I find it under when we put the YouTube replay up. I'll put the name in a comment there. So
great, be perfect. That's a great place to put it, and then everybody can have access to it.
Yeah, perfect.
Super. I thoroughly enjoyed this webinar. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This was great, and I hope everybody really took away something from this and recognizes that it's so important that we give ourselves acknowledgement. And it is so not easy.
Yes, it's uncomfortable, right? It is. Yes. It goes against our nature. And there's this idea that, we want more. So if that we're not, it's complicated, but yeah. I love the synchronicity of your article on this. So that's an awesome time.
Yeah, I know. I think that's so funny. But it's just like, and something I learned a long time ago is that if we catch ourselves saying something like, I always miss that jump. If you put the phrase in the past on it, it time frames it and it kind of gives it a chance.
I love that. Oh my goodness, I love that.
And so I tell people that because again, like you pointed out, is you can't stop yourself from going to that negative place. That's part of our system. That's part of how we take care of ourselves. But once you time frame it, the brain can't tell time. So if you say, I always, it's like, okay, this is what I'm doing. But if you go, I always in the past, you've time framed it and the brain goes, well, what am I doing now?
I love that, Wendy. I love that. Oh my goodness. I'm going to use that and credit you. I love that.
Go for it. I can't remember. I've used it for so long. I'm hard pressed to figure out when I started. We're talking 20 years minimum.
That's so good. That's just an instant reframe of like realizing the story you're telling yourself. Right. So that's so helpful. I love that.
Yep. Love that. Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I hope everybody got a lot out of this. And like I said, I'll be back in October. We're going to have a special with Linda Tellington Jones. So look for that in your email list, in your email box when we send out a notice for that. She's been 50 years with the Tellington Touch, and I've known her for 40. So we're going to do a real interesting webinar with Linda.
I'm excited for that one. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was so good to see you. And have an amazing time in Kenya.
I will. Thanks. All right, everybody. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.